Namaste. This video, I want to talk to you very quickly about perception and the nature of perception, the illusory nature of perception. I'm going to refer in this video to the Course in Miracles, which a number of us are doing this year. So we're at about lesson 21, 22 today. The Course in Miracles is very precise in pointing out the illusory nature of perception. It starts out by telling us that our thoughts do not mean anything. And moreover than telling us, it invites us to have that introspection, inquiry into the nature of thought. We start out with the first lesson that says, nothing that I see means anything. This chair doesn't mean anything, this body doesn't mean anything. You say, well, wait, hold on. What do you mean this chair doesn't mean anything, this body doesn't mean anything? This body is my wife. No, this body is my wife. This is a thought. Now the Course in Miracles then goes on to say, my thoughts do not mean anything. Now what is going on here? Is the Course completely crazy? Is it nullifying everything? And where does it leave you? What kind of brainwashing is this, right? Sometimes, as my friend Ben said, when you have a dirty brain, a brain full of lies, falsehoods, illusions, sometimes it needs a good washing. This is brilliant. But again, what I think doesn't mean anything. Back to perception. Why doesn't it mean anything? It is because we continue to interpret everything we see in relation to ourselves. Now, if we had a clear understanding, a felt understanding, a realization of what we are in truth, no problem. But then also, the world would be no problem. But so long as you see that the world is a problem, then clearly there's a problem. And the problem is, as many of our teachers say, not in the world, but in our perception of the world. Why is there this problem? Well, the problem arises because everything that we see, we interpret in relation to ourselves. And what we take ourselves to be is this small ego that is encapsulated within the body and quite separate and distinct from everyone else, with its own ideas, its own interpretations, its own goals, and its own needs for survival and for pleasure and to avoid pain. And this is what we usually refer to, usually, not always, when we're in love, or when we're in a state of satori or peace, or there's some breathtaking experience. Oh, we might not refer to that one so quickly. But in our own normal intellectual flow of life through the world, we refer to ourselves as this type of entity. Now, this type of entity is not what we are. This type of entity doesn't even exist in the sense that there's a body, of course, and then there's many thoughts. And the thoughts that seem to arise in the mind, we take them to be real and concrete, and we say, oh yes, that's true, that's what I am. So when we're looking at the wife or the objects around in the room, the chair, it's always referring back to myself. What does this mean? And what does it mean in relation to me? Is it beneficial? If my wife is beneficial to me, I'm going to have very different perception of her than if she has been quite a burden. Okay? And we can see this also because when you come and take a look at the wife or the chair, you'll have a completely different perception of it. How could it be that all these perceptions are such a mismatch, that one thing is a million things if a million people are looking at it? So now we want to go and penetrate a little bit deeper. And perception is not as concrete as we imagine and as we rely on it to be in the way that we talk and move and live in the world. Then what's the next step? How can we penetrate deeper and see where is the truth? We come to a place in A Course in Miracles where it says, I see only the past. Now again, we say, what does that mean? How can I see only the past? I'm looking at this chair right now. There's no wife, so I'm going to use the chair. I'm looking at this chair right now. Clearly, it's right there. How could it be that I see only the past? Okay, so here, the only reason that you recognize that this is a chair is because you have had past experiences with a chair. Surely when you were little, someone said to you, you say, oh, Mommy, what's this? Oh, that's a chair, honey. That's a chair. Oh, chair, chair. That's a chair. And so chair is just a sound, which has very arbitrary meaning in that we associate that sound with that thing. But that doesn't give you any true understanding of what a chair is. In reality, this chair is the ineffable manifestation of God, Christ, the universe, the unspeakable essence, into your experience. Now that's a very different chair than what we're used to sitting on. So we say chair. Recognition works. I was meaning to say perception. Perception works on this basis of recognition. And what is recognition? If we break down the word, it's very easy. It's means again. Cognition means to understand, comprehend. So recognition, when we recognize, if we recognize anything at all, and when we perceive something, we undoubtedly think that we recognize it. To recognize means I have seen it before, and only in this way I can recognize it. I am not cognizing, I am not in touch with the pure, ineffable reality of this moment, but instead I am in touch with my past programming, education, cultural influences, whatever is happening. I'm pointing here because we're all used to pointing here, but I might as well point there. Who knows? The brain is clearly here, but thoughts, I'm not so sure. The nature of thought is that it appears everywhere at the same time. If you try and find the location of your thought, you might think it's in your head, but that's just another thought. But I'm digressing here. So the nature of perception is based entirely on the past. So if we allow that to just sink in and feel like, yes, actually I'm not seeing anything as it is, especially when I'm referring to my thoughts about it. I don't understand what it is or what it is for, or for that matter, I don't understand what I am. So let me just be quiet for a moment and not impose my ideas and my past learning onto this moment, because this moment is so fresh, so fresh. So when I bring my interpretation to it, it completely dies. So this ineffable manifestation of God that is beaming in this experience as this experience is entirely missed when I think I am looking at the camera and I'm talking about something and sitting in this chair. Now, as you can see, the aliveness of it is drained out and it becomes like a cardboard representation of it. Like you see those cardboard stands, and it may have a picture of a man on it, but from far away you might think, oh, that's a man. Oh, wait, no, it's all made of cardboard. And it's got no aliveness in it. So the first step of penetration through this veil of, the Buddha says, the veil of ignorance. Why ignorance? Because we're ignoring what's truly here and substituting instead our own idea for this moment. So to penetrate the veil of ignorance, to just begin to allow it to dissolve, requires only your willingness to not refer to your thoughts as the arbiters of reality. Thoughts keep on coming. I've tried many different ways to stop them. There is a way to sink below the level of thought, but as thoughts keep coming, it's okay. But if we learn to recognize them, but not take them as the authority on this moment, and instead refer to this moment as the authority, as the truth, as the arising of reality, then it's a very different experience. So how to do that? Simply, simply I am just here, and I don't even touch that dot. Simply connect with the already present presence of just being here. It's very simple. Naturally, we're here. And see if you can just look at something, look at anything. I'm looking at the camera. And allow yourself for just a moment to not know anything at all about it. Pretend, imagine you know nothing about this thing you're looking at. Anything. And as soon as a thought comes up, just drop again below the surface of that ocean where the waves of thoughts are playing, and just, again, drop into this unknowing, the cloud of unknowing. Let that permeate your experience. And notice if you notice something. What is that? Notice if you notice a slight, I don't even know what to call it. It's a slight movement of consciousness. A slight gasp, a slight within the field of consciousness, because all of a sudden, for that slight gasp, that moment, you stand naked. You stand absolutely naked without any of your interpretations. And that's how we drop in. That's how we penetrate the veil, and we do it again and again and again. And we call on all the help that we can, and with time, or without time, I have no idea, somehow it begins to part. And so, for now, these magnificent tastes of the ineffable. Dive in,